in the silent darkness of space, and flying dangerously close to the horrific rift known as the Eye of Terror. The Void Serpent cut through the starry expanse of the Gothic sector, her hull adorned with the scars of countless battles. Captain Tobias Rex stood on the bridge, gazing out at the vast emptiness before him. This pirate ship, his ship, was an ancient relic from the Age of Redemption, and had undoubtedly seen far better days, but its crew was still as fierce as ever, willing to live and die in the pursuit of riches, away from the rule of the Imperium and the myriad of dark, lonely, and overwhelmingly depressing lives of its many workers.
"Captain, we got incoming,"
shouted Varas, the ship's helmsman and second in command. He was hunched over the Auspex, his eyes wide with alarm. Tobias strode over, his boots echoing on the metal deck.
"Orcs?"
he asked, though he already knew the answer. The telltale green icon on the Auspex screen left little doubt.
"Aye, Captain. Not the biggest ship, but it's orcs nonetheless."
"No chance of escape from this proximity?"
"Unlikely, Captain."
Fuck. Fire first?
I doubt we do much damage. Likely we'll just piss him off more. They could blast us to bits right now, but
they want to do it personally.
Looks like Goth Clan from the markings.
Tobias's jaw tightened as the external camera zoomed in on the red circle emblem with its checkered perimeter and menacing orc head at its center.
Fuck. Sound the alarm. All hands to battle stations.
Varas set to work, initiating their internal defenses.
All crew red alert. Prepare for boarding. We have an orc vessel approaching. Repeat, prepare for boarding.
The klaxons wailed, and the ship's corridors filled with a pounding of boots and a mounting tension of fear. The pirates rushed to their posts, weapons cocked and ready, bottlenecks formed, lines of sight confirmed, specific killbox areas already rehearsed and covered. Now all they could do was pray that they worked, for they knew what was coming. They knew the intensity and ferociousness of their Xenos enemy, and they were prepared to give their lives with equal measure. On board the rusted clump of metal that formed the orc ship, their leader Thrakka stared with unblinking eyes at the pathetic human prey before him. Below him, somehow managing to operate some form of control system, a warrior spoke. It was Nork.
"We's gonna blow them out of existence, yeah, boss?"
"No. Too long we's been tracking these ones. I don't wanna feel the blood on me face."
Huh, yeah, that's much better. So he's boarded then, boss?
"Of course, we's fucking boarding him, you idiot. Get the boys together and bring your shooters. We's gonna do a little crumping today."
Within the space of 10 terrifying minutes, the crew of the Void Serpent was fully prepared for any possibility. Their hearts beating fast, but their nerves carved from iron. They waited. The silence was deafening. And the orcs, hearts beating relatively normal for an orc, and the perspective of violence already drooling at their mouths, were ready to taste blood. Now the orc boarding craft slammed into the Void Serpent with the destructive force of a comet. Metal screeched and buckled under heat as the boarding torpedoes drilled into the hull. The initial blast doors held for a mere moment before exploding inward, showering the corridor with white-hot debris. The orcs poured in, bellowing war cries and firing their crude weaponry. Any impact, concussion, or physical injury quickly shrugged off by the adrenaline of combat. They were massive, hulking brutes, each one a green-skinned mountain of muscle and fury. They wore makeshift red armor, adorned with spikes and clan glyphs, and their eyes burned with a deep and savage gleam.
"Hold the line!"
bellowed Tobias, his voice echoing throughout the ship's Vox system as he and his men took up positions behind hastily erected barricades.
"Fire at will!"
Suddenly, the corridors exploded in a cacophony of gunfire, las gun and bolt pistol shots cracking through the confined spaces of the ship's interior. In return, the orcs roared with rage and pleasure as they charged inward, heedless of the casualties, disregarding personal pain and torment as the bullets plunged into their bodies. Their returning fire aimed wildly in the general direction of the enemy, carelessly performing multiple acts of friendly fire as each shot lit up the corridors with flame and fire. Round after round of spent shell casings bouncing off the metal walls and filling the ground around them. Varas stood his ground, his dueling sword cutting through the air with extreme precision. He slashed and hacked at the orcs in close-quarter combat, green limbs flying in every direction as warm blood continuously flowed down his sword to cover his already slipping hand. But for every one he brought down, 2 more took its place. The pirate crew fought fiercely, but they were being pushed backward as each body fell, as their numbers steadily dwindled, always backwards.
Fall back! Fall back to the second bulkhead!
Varas cried, and the pirates retreated further into the depths of the ship as the onslaught somehow grew with intensity. Each member firing blindly now as they stepped backward, leaving a trail of hulking green bodies and fallen crew behind them. The initial plan had failed. The orcs had broken through in every direction. The bottlenecks passed with ease. The kill boxes filled and spilled out from every orifice. In a brief moment of silence, they regrouped at the next defensive line, but the orcs were relentless, fueled by adrenaline, hungry for violence, thirsty for blood. They were coming. Tobias moved through the chaos, rallying his men.
We can't let them reach the engine room. If they take the core, we're finished.
Varas caught his captain's eye from across the room and nodded. Together they would organize the men nearest them, and together they would hope to live another day. But the orcs pressed on. Smashing through barricades and ripping doors off their hinges as they passed. Thrakka raised a bloodied fist in the air as he growled.
Smash 'em in, boys! We's having some fun tonight, is we not?
The dwindling pirates fought with desperate and defiant fury, but they were massively outnumbered and extremely outgunned. The corridors of the Void Serpent became a blood-soaked battleground, littered with bodies of the fallen and dripping with a sweet smell of blood. In a final act, as they retreated further, deeper, they had locked themselves away behind all that remained. Now, in the dim light of the engine room, as the last stand was being prepared, Tobias' stomach filled with the anxiety of a dreadful ultimatum, for he knew that this was it, do or die. If they couldn't stop the orcs here, there would be no escape.
Captain! We've rigged the plasma conduits to blow!
Called Varas, behind him, the remnants of the crew working feverishly, setting charges and rerouting the power.
It will take them out. But we won't survive the blast either.
Tobias nodded grimly.
Do it. Better to take them with us than let them have the fucking ship.
Suddenly, the door to the engine room shuddered as the orcs pounded on it. Tobias and his remaining crew took up their positions, sweat pouring from their brows, hands now trembling, but still they were ready for the final fight.
Oi, you lot in there. Ain't nothing coming out of your mouths anymore, is there, you little gits? We's gonna win, and we's gonna take this ship because we's the best. Come on, you puny little wimps. Let's be having you.
With a deafening clatter, the door burst open and the orcs stormed in. Their leader Thrakka was truly a massive specimen, wielding a giant power claw in his grip. The sight of him alone could send a wave of doom into your very soul. Tobias had no feelings towards the state of the human race, and he was certainly no devout follower of the Emperor. But for some reason, in his final moments, against the oppressive Xenos scum, he cried aloud.
For the Imperium!
As he rose and rushed forward, leading the charge to certain death. The pirates fought with everything they had, but the orcs were simply unstoppable. Thrakka cut through the ranks, laughing as he crushed men beneath his boots. A familiar cry filled the engine room, and Tobias turned to see Varus breathe a gush of blood from his lungs. He rushed toward them both, as Thrakka tossed the limp body aside. And now, the two leaders stood before each other. Tobias faced the war boss, Power Sword, against Power Claw. The two clashed, the room filled with the sound of metal on metal. Tobias fought with all his skill, but Thrakka was too strong, and with a final brutal swing, the orc leader struck the captain down.
Puny human.
But as Tobias lay on the floor, motionless, dying, he saw Varus beside him, and the faintest of smiles graced his cheeks as his second-in-command raised his hand in the air and triggered the charges. The engine room filled with a furious, blinding light as the charges detonated and the plasma conduits exploded. The orcs were engulfed in the blast as it ruptured through the corridors, and the Void Serpent was torn apart from within. In the cold desolation of space, as the shockwave faded, the wreckage of the pirate ship drifted away in all directions, a silent testament to its last stand, for the Void Serpent and her crew had fought to the bitter end. But in the grim darkness of this age, no one had won this battle, and no one would be remembered.